Welcome everybody to Extreme Off-Road Silly Bills, and today we're dealing with the 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup. Now this has 1,893 horsepower, 1,739 pounds-feet of torque from 4 electric motors plus 220 kilowatt-hour batteries, which have been nicked from the Rimac Nevera. And it now weighs 6,332 pounds. Still has its all-wheel drive system, but it now has off-road suspension and off-road tyres, and it can only 0 to 60 in 2.253 seconds, 0 to 104.944 seconds, and go to a top speed of 211 miles an hour. So yeah, we could have had a higher top speed out of this car, but that would have meant increasing the amount of time it took to get to 61 to 100. So, and because obviously we're unlikely to get to 211 even as it is, figured it, a lower top speed but quicker acceleration would be better. Still a weighty car though, easily one of the heaviest vehicles that we've had on this series, despite having going on quite a big diet. But yeah, it's got more than 800 horsepower than it had originally, well over 700 more extra pounds-feet of torque. So yeah, even though it's quite heavy and doesn't have the best of handling, it should do pretty well. But yeah, the acceleration, launch and braking are fairly solid, and the off-road capability is obviously pretty great as well, because obviously it was built to go off-road. Even with it now having improved off-road suspension and off-road tyres, it was still pretty good off-road anyway. So yeah, this could go either way. We've already had a GMC in the form of a Jimmy, which managed 3 minutes 25.247, which was decent for the time, but obviously that is a much older car, so you wouldn't expect that to be the quickest of things. So yeah, with this, I think even more power than that did in its upgraded form, while obviously being electric and therefore instantaneous pretty much in terms of its power delivery. It's going to be a pretty hairy car to drive, but also silent as well, because even though the Rimac Nevera has so much power, being electric, it's actually whisper quiet, which is unlike the motors in this car when stock. When you upgrade those motors, even though there's only 3 of them and not 4, they are a lot louder. So yeah, it just goes to show how well refined the Rimac Nevera is with its power delivery and general usability on a day-to-day basis. Not that this would be awful to drive, but yeah, upgraded motors on this from its stock motors are pretty noisy. Although the standard motors with their standard power output are pretty quiet, surprisingly, despite having more than 1,000 horsepower. So yeah, let's see how we deal with this jump. Pretty well, as you'd expect with, really high suspension and big thick tyres, which have been increased in their wall height as well. So yeah, the car's even higher, and not just in terms of the off-road suspension, but also because of the thicker tyres. Thicker two ways as well, obviously, in terms of width and height. So yeah, it's not the most nimble of things, because obviously it's got way more power going up front, so understeer is going to be somewhat of an issue at times. But on top of that, obviously it is also quite a chunky car. It's quite wide, it's quite tall, and yeah, not exactly short either. But then you also have the addition of all of that weight, which granted is nearly £3,000 less than what it was stock. 6,000 plus pounds is still a lot of weight to be shifting around, especially when you're going quite quick. Luckily the brakes are pretty decent as well, so even though we have a lot of weight and a lot of momentum behind that weight, we can slow it down. What kind of speeds we're going to get to down here? Yeah, the 150, which is pretty good. Certainly has its moments of being quite nimble, though it's not as of a lumberous car as you might expect. But then on the opposite side, it does have its moments where it's understeering wildly and not being as easy to turn in as you might want it to be. Whoa dear. Slightly overcooked it there. But we are comfortably faster than the Jimmy, by more than 10 seconds in fact, at 3 minutes 14.486, which, yeah, is not just quicker than the Jimmy, but that is quicker than most cars that we've had on this series. In fact, that lands in 6th place. It's just behind the MG Metro 6R4, which at the end of the day is a rally car, so no surprise that's as quick as it is. Just over a second slower than the RJ Anderson Polaris RZR Pro 4 truck, again made for going off-road, but it is slower than the Rimac Nevera, which this has its motors with, but not all that far off considering the massive difference in weight, in terms of handling, in terms of what they're normally used for, as we're just under 3 seconds slower than the Rimac Nevera, which, yeah, was and still is our fastest EV. But the fact that we have a Hummer, of all things, be our second fastest EV is mightily impressive. And yeah, despite everything that's going against it, the weight, the size, the fact it's got way more power and torque than it had originally is really, really impressive. And yeah, just goes to show that this car can and will show what it can do when you want it to. So yeah, and I've had success online races as well in A-Class with this car as well. And yeah, so it's not only capable of going off-road at speed and doing really rather well, but also it's capable of being a racing car as well, as you will see in a future episode. But nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.